why don't we get to the Candace thing? Because this is a setup of what the downstream lack of trust in Kash Patel, law enforcement, and all that generally is showing, where there is a huge amount of skepticism. Ryan and Emily covered the text messages yesterday that were put in the criminal complaint against Charlie Kirk, alleged assassination, Tyler Robinson, and including these text messages between Robinson and his boyfriend. And in those text messages, he appeared to not only confess to the crime, but also talked about, wanting to go back and retrieve the rifle. However, a lot of people are focusing on some of the particular language that is being used here by Robinson. Candace Owens, one of the more high-profile people, questioning the legitimacy of these messages. Here's what she had to say.
Yeah, these messages are clearly doctored, is what I would say. They're doctored. Now, they could decide why they're doing that. Tyler's being forthcoming. We're protecting him in some capacity. I find that to be unacceptable. Okay? Unacceptable. I want every single text message. I want timestamps. It is conspicuous that you are not telling us when this was sent, because it sounds like it's when the campus is on lockdown and he's got to go back and he's got to clean up. And then all of a sudden we're in the next day when his dad is getting clued in after the picture's been released. They're not telling us that, okay? And you have a right to be a little bit uncomfortable about that, because I'm a lot of bit uncomfortable about that. We need full answers.
And as bad as it's presented in Utah, I'm not buying all of it. I'm particularly not buying those text messages. It just seems too stilted, too much like a script, actually a bad script.
That's from Steve Bannon and from Candace Owens. Their allegation. I mean, look, nobody really knows. By the way, Matt Walsh, many others have said the same thing. What they're saying is it almost looks as if Robinson is trying to absolve a boyfriend of pre-knowledge of the crime and of helping plan it. I mean, it's theoretically possible. They pointed to Breaking Bad, for example, the famous Walter White scene where he tries to absolve Skyler on the phone. I wouldn't put it necessarily out of the realm of possibility, because if we're being, I mean, look, this is my own pure speculation. The messages are a bit weird. I mean, one of the things Candace,
they're really weird.
One of the things Candace brings up is vehicle. She was like, go in your text messages and search for the word vehicle. And I looked at it. The only time it has ever appeared is whenever I get a message from the service department of the car dealer saying your vehicle is ready for service, or from one of those spam messages from China where they pretend to be the DMV.
Right.
And they're like, your DMV.
Your vehicle registration
is plus
expiring.
63 area code, your vehicle has, exactly, your tags have expired. There is not a single other reference. No, actually, I did text my wife once about Secret Service vehicle. That's what I said.
Secret Service vehicle.
That's the only. That's the only time I've ever referred to my car as my vehicle. To a car as a vehicle.
We're not Gen Z either. This is a 22-year-old who's typing like, and we had Ryan and Emily had Ken Klippenstein on yesterday, who'd spoken with his friends, who said he was like pretty nonverbal, like he wasn't a very communicative individual. And then you see the, oh my love, comma. That's the thing that got me, is like the full-on sentences and punctuation, because we're not imagining him at a computer typing. He's supposed to be like on his phone in the midst of what they're searching for him. He just murdered some dude, and he's typing out these full-on like sonnet and using all this FBI speak in terms of the way he's communicating. And then the other part of it is like, it's very fortunate for the FBI that he fills in the blanks of all of the investigation pieces, like talks about the gun, talks about premeditation, talks about where he left him, talks about the outfit change. This part at the end where he's like, remember when I was engraving bullets with these memes? Listen, it may be legit, but
small business owners are do-it-yourselfers. When my business was new, I couldn't afford an attorney, but I needed a contract written. So I wrote my own 5th grade version of a contract. I wouldn't recommend doing this because, yes, you guessed it, my contract actually got tested in court. Federal court. Surprisingly, the judge literally said my 5th grade contract was the best contract he had ever seen. Can I have an amen and hallelujah? But trust me, contract writing is not a do-it-yourself task. Running payroll, however, is.
Mike Capel here, serial entrepreneur.
My 5th successful company, Patriot Software, helps small business do-it-yourselfers run payroll without needing to be a payroll expert, whether you have 1 or 500 employees.
Keep your time and money.
Hello, I'm
I'm 5-time Olympic gold medalist Amy Poehler. I've been asked to talk to you about the new puzzle game, Royal Kingdom. It is so much fun. It has absolutely no ads, which everyone can appreciate, and it has great graphics, and the animations are... Oh wow, the animations are cool. Wow, they're really cool. Hold on, sorry, I'm almost done. Just gonna get to this next thing, and nice. Okay, where was I? Yes, great graphics, absolutely stunning, and you don't even need Wi-Fi to play. You can play anywhere, like right now, which I would like to do. And I wanna keep going. Oh, look at this guy. Okay, it's free, it's fun.
To tie it back in with Kash, when you have Kash Patel, who is both an incredibly, you have a politicized FBI run by Kash Patel, who's also an idiot and a moron and incompetent, then yeah, you're gonna have basically no one believing what you're putting out. And so I saw this across the board. Like, liberals don't believe it, leftists don't believe it, MAGA doesn't believe it. MAGA's theories kind of fall into two buckets. A bunch of them think that the messages are just completely faked by the FBI because Israel killed him. I don't see any evidence of that, just putting that out there. That is one theory that is being routinely floated. And then the other bucket, and this is where Candace's theory, is that basically the messages are designed to absolve the roommate, boyfriend, lover. And so that's why they look and feel so strange.
To be honest.
I mean, listen, I have to see some evidence outside of just they feel weird before I'm gonna float or concoct any sort of theory. But I don't think it's like, I think it's very reasonable that people are looking at this and going, this is a way, a 22-year-old text. Okay,
well,
that
someone
seems
said
really strange.
It seems ChatGPT. So, for example, another thing Candace said was search your text messages for retrieve. So I did. There are 3 retrieves in my entire history of having an iPhone. So since 2014, 2 out of the 3 are about golden retrievers. The other is a friend of mine on a bachelor party saying, "I'm happy to retrieve some Zin." That is the only mention of retrieve in my entire text message history.
Also,
I should message him and be like, "Why are you using the word retrieve?"
Calling his dad his old man is like, I mean, maybe that's a Utah thing. I don't know. You know, he's got in here. He got the motive in. He got the premeditation. He got the rifle details. Like, again, this was very fortunate for the FBI that they had this very strange, stilted conversation. That laid out everything and filled in all of the holes in their investigation. That was very, very lucky for the FBI that all occurred in that way. So I don't know. I had my my daughter, my 17-year-old, look at it, and she was like, "Mom, there is no one that texts like this." And she even noticed things like, okay, so a Gen Z thing is to turn off the auto cap. So that at the beginning of
you guys stop doing.
So at the beginning of sentences, you know, it's not capitalized. They see it as like an old person thing to have your sentences capitalized. And in these texts, half of them are not capitalized, and then half of them are. She also said, you know how there's like there's ellipses in here too. Now I don't know if the ellipses are only where they like cut off, you know, because the conversation's not reproduced in full. But she also said those are like old people dots. Anyway, there's strangeness in the conversation itself. It's very convenient for the FBI. And then when you add to it Kash Patel being a political apparatchik and an absolute complete moron, then you get across the board people being like, I just don't fucking believe it. Sorry, don't believe it.
Our producer Max says calling it a squad car instead of a cop. Yeah, he's onto something there.
I mean,
I don't even know if I've ever used the term squad car.
So
ever.
To play devil's advocate, okay, this guy is a Mormon raised in this small town, sheltered environment in Utah. And he's very high IQ, potentially autistic. I mean, I'm just speculating. Possibly. Or mentally ill.
Probably
or
both.
Maybe a little bit of both. He just murdered someone. Allegedly. I don't know, you know, maybe that changes your communication style because it certainly doesn't fit with other communications that were released, like from Ken in the Discord messages. But, you know, the level of adrenaline, and you did this, you know, in some ways on behalf of your lover and you're communicating with them. Like, if I had to explain them in a non-conspiratorial way, those are the pieces I would put together to say, well, that maybe that's why. But certainly not very intelligent if you were thinking that you were going to get away with this to then go, because he says, like, oh, I'm going to take this to, you know, I was hoping I could take this to my grave or, you know, when I'm an old man or whatever, to then go and lay out every element, constituent element of the crime in easily discoverable text messages.
Yeah,
so not the brainiac move there.
Again, I reserve the right to be skeptical. I still think it's all weird. The entire thing, it seems odd. It seems quite plausible and reasonable that he is trying to absolve his lover of any potential legal threats. I mean, or of any potential like legal exposure. You will recall the governor had said it did appear that they didn't know anything about it, and that they don't believe at this time that there's some sort of grander conspiracy. I still find that a little bit hard to, I mean, look, the circumstances are weird. Like, you had that guy in the crowd. Yes, I understand he was kind of crazy. I don't know. I just find the entire thing a little bit preposterous.
They've given us no reason to have confidence in their narrative.
That's what I was going to say. Because I have covered this for so long, and now with Cash at the top, it's not just Epstein for me. It's Stephen Paddock.
If you're launching a new business or have been successfully running one for years, finding the best insurance coverage for your commercial vehicle is crucial. Whether your business is landscaping, cleaning, construction, plumbing, home improvement, or food trucks, a commercial auto insurance policy can help protect you and your business. When it comes to finding the perfect partner for your commercial auto insurance needs, look no further than Infinity Insurance Agency. We go the extra mile by accepting foreign licenses, offering discounts for various criteria, such as having prior coverage, paid in full, and multiple insured vehicles. Our agents can help with customizable coverages, payment options, and policy discounts to help you find an insurance policy that works for your budget. Even if you have a less than perfect driving record, IIA can help you find policies tailored to your specific situation. Secure your business on the road with IIA, your trusted partner in commercial auto insurance.
The conductor's forces are rampant to the Plaguelands. We're sending you in to investigate and take action. Be ready for anything.
To the next assault point. Make every shot count, my friend. It's good to carry a gun. Better to have guns carry you.
Stay in the fight. We're almost home.
It's, I mean, even some of the, like the Pulse shooting, right? Yeah, San Bernardino. What else am I thinking? Parkland, Uvalde, the UT, or the Texas church, the church where that guy came in and killed everybody. Like, in every single case that I have covered of these, it's either known to FBI or killer is shot, and we don't really, say anything about some of the previous, interactions with that person, and the level of cover-up that usually ends up happening. Remember Uvalde, right? I mean, the Texas governor, the day after, was like, oh, it was heroic, and they responded perfectly, when you could look at the timeline and you're like, what the hell is going on here? They didn't go in for 2 hours or something. I'm very sketched out by this entire thing, and especially in the context. I mean, it's kind of like 9/11, if you think about it. The official narrative was, they hate us for our freedoms, and that's why it all happened. That's why we need this massive crackdown, and we have to go to war in Iraq, and all of this. And, oh, the Saudi pages, don't worry about it. There's still some weird details. Yeah, I mean, in the 9/11 Commission report, right, where they claimed that they found the passport of one of the hijackers on the ground. I don't know, all right? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That's everything else burns up in jet fuel, the passport falls on the ground. Okay,
So
maybe.
To be honest with you, to me, the thing that is most persuasive to me that these text messages are real and genuine is actually that they are so stilted and weird.
Yeah, right.
That it's like,
you're right. That's Occam's razor.
Surely whoever was crafting these would do a better job than this. And so I actually come back around full circle. Like, they're so weird and so strangely worded and so convenient. Like, it couldn't possibly be that they would be this clumsy if they were actually formulating some fake dialogue. But like you said, I think it's fair for people to look at this investigation, to look at who's at the head of the FBI, to look at the degrading of institutional trust over years and decades. If we go back to the Kennedy assassination, and say, listen, maybe, but you're gonna have to bring me some more evidence. I'm gonna need to be more persuaded than this strange text message conversation ultimately.
I completely agree. By the way, it's not just right-wingers who are all saying this.
Oh no, it's across the board.
Others,
this is very unifying.
I think it should be. It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, I think we had Brooklyn Dad Defiant as an example here.
Who is that, by the way?
Oh, you don't know? This guy is a resistance. He's a resistance icon.
I'm
shocked you don't. He hated Bernie. Anyway,
I've muted most of these folks.
Die-hard lib. Okay. I don't believe these text messages were written by Tyler Robinson for a second. I didn't know him personally. I know that no 22-year-old writes text messages like this. This feels like that Steve Buscemi skateboard meme, how do you do, fellow kids? So, yeah, it is truly a bipartisan affair. I mean, obviously, liberals don't have any sort of faith in this FBI. There's been a real sort of conspiracy alignment into the right where, some of the conspiratorial, crunchy hippie 9/11 truther types were part of the RFK coalition and are now on, in the MAGA base as well. And so you already have that impulse there. And then you have Cash having just absolutely torched any credibility that he had with his Epstein filing. And then you're asking people to, to accept things that seem strange where they still have questions. And, it's good luck with making that sell.
That's right. All right, let's get to Trump.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.
What sets us apart? At the Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office, we are guided by the mission to serve and protect through dedication, professionalism, active cooperation with the community, and respect for human dignity. Our core values, integrity, service, respect, and progress, are at the heart of everything we do. If you are ready to make a difference, join our law enforcement family. Start your career today with the Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office by applying at gogcso.com. Your future awaits.
Kash Patel facing a lot of challenging questions in front of a House committee yesterday on Capitol Hill and not handling himself all that well. Questions about, the investigation right now into Tyler Robinson, questions about Epstein, questions about other issues regarding the FBI. He has become this sort of central character. Let's go ahead and take a listen to some of the lowlights from his performance.
Remembering your oath to tell the truth, did you ever tell Donald Trump his name is in the files?
I have never spoken to President Trump about the Epstein files.
Did you ever tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
The Attorney General and I have had numerous discussions about the entirety of the Epstein files and the reviews conducted by our team.
Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
And we have released where President Trump's name is in the Attorney General's files. It's a simple question.
Did you tell the Attorney General that the President's name is in the Epstein files?
During many conversations that the Attorney General and I have had on the matter of Epstein, we have reviewed.
The question is simple.
Who
did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files? Yes or no?
Why don't you try spelling it out?
Yes or no, Director?
Use the alphabet.
Yes or no?
No, A, B, C,
Director,
D, E, F.
it sounds like you don't want to tell us. Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name was in the Epstein files?
Why don't you try serving your
Director,
constituency
did
by
you tell the
focusing on
Attorney
reducing
General
violent
that Donald
crime in this
Trump's name-
country and the number of pedophiles that are
Director,
illegally
reclaiming my
harbored in
time,
your
Director.
sanctuary cities in
Director,
California?
reclaiming
I'll
my
work with
time.
you on that. Do you
Regular
want to
order,
work
Mr.
with us
Chairman.
on that?
Director,
I'm
reclaiming
the
my
honest
time.
gentleman from California.
Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
Question has been asked and answered.
You've not answered it, and we will take your evasiveness as a consciousness of guilt. You said you don't know the number of times Trump's name appears in the files, so it could at least be 1,000 times. Is that right?
The number is a total misleading factor. We have not
Could the
released
number at least
anyone's
be 1,000
name
times?
that we have not released anyone's
Could it
name in the
at least
Epstein
be 1,000
files that has
times?
not been credible.
Director, could it at
We have
least be 1,000
released
times?
every piece of legally permissible information.
Okay,
You can
so-
characterize the numbers however you want it.
Reclaiming my time, Director. It sounds like if you don't know the number, it could at least be 1,000 times. Which
It's not.
leads me-
It's not.
Is it at least 500 times?
No.
Is it at least 100 times?
No.
Then what's the number?
I don't know the number, but it's not that.
Do you think it might be your job to know the number?
My job is to provide for the safety and security of this country. My job is not to engage in political
And that
innuendo
includes
so
protecting
you can go
sexual
out to the
assault victims.
sticks and get your 20-second hit in your fundraising
reclaiming my
article.
time,
And
Director.
keep going, reclaiming your time, because the
Director,
people of California
If
are being
Trump- if the
underserved by
president-
your
The
representation.
president is not implicated. Why not release everything that involves
We
him?
have released everything, the president and anyone else's side, that is credible and lawfully be able to be released. Your fixation on this matter and baseless accusations that I'm hiding
also
child
Mr. Massey's
pedophiles is disgusting.
interest.
Anyone that says that needs to look at the stats alone.
The president has, you've seen the picture of the woman's body with the writing and the president's signature. The president says that's not his. Okay? President says it's not his. The Republican colleagues say it's not his. The administration say it's not his. Will you be opening up an investigation into the Epstein estate for putting out a fake document with the president's signature linking him to the world's largest pedophile ring? Will you be opening that investigation into that?
On what basis?
On what basis? They literally put out a fake document, according to the president, with a fake signature. It's a forgery of the president of the United States signature. That's the basis.
Sure, I'll do it.
Okay, I look forward to that investigation.
Yeah, I'm sure we won't be holding our breath on getting back to us on that one.
Crashing out, man. Won't answer the question.
He's not even remotely artful at this either.
Oh, no.
You know, he just like tries to divert and start screaming about California and we're reciting the ABCs. It's like, dude. And we're gonna get to some of the MAGA world skepticism into the Tyler Robinson investigation. Like, a big part of why there are so many conspiracies proliferating, especially like on the right in particular, is because of Epstein and Kash Patel being at the center of that and losing all credibility.
There's nothing like college football. Gotta love everything that comes with it. How you feel? It's exciting to play football. Get 'em. Big 12 football is on TNT Sports. It's in the name. It's big.
With anyone who's remotely paying attention. So that's part of why Democrats continue to hammer on Epstein. That, and you know, I mean, before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, we were digging into that birthday book, which was quite shocking. Trump's thing in there actually being one of the less shocking things, amazingly. But you know, there was a whole Epstein news cycle, and there has been so much trust broken with people who cared about any sort of accountability, justice, transparency, et cetera. And that bleeds over into assessment of his handling of anything else that comes before him.
Yeah, I think really the takeaway from here is that he's an idiot and incompetent. We saw all of that on Tyler Robinson. We saw it previously on Epstein. Unfortunately, not enough people put pressure on Kash Patel. There was a time when, you know, I think he was kind of precarious just because of his handling of Epstein, but they basically let him get away with it, and it actually manifests with the Robinson case. I do think that the Epstein part of it, though, is very important because it set the tone for why should we trust anything that you have to say? I mean, remember, I think Ryan and Emily covered it yesterday when he testified that nobody had ever been trafficked by Epstein, that there wasn't a shred of evidence. And you're like, well, okay. I mean, that's just quite literally not what you said previously. And you can claim that you were totally wrong, which I guess is kind of what he is claiming, but it looks pretty sketchy in the context of everything else going on with the administration. That is important context, genuinely, for Robinson, because as we're about to show you, he doesn't even know anything about other high-profile investigations under his purview, like Thomas Matthews Crooks, the attempted assassin of Donald Trump. Here's what Cash had to say about that.
When your predecessor sat right there in that seat a couple of years, last year in a committee hearing, I asked him a very detailed question about Matthew Thomas Crooks, the shooter responsible for the assassination attempt on President Trump's life. I did get an answer from Chris Wray that day, and I submitted written questions to the FBI and into the record of this committee. And I want to resubmit those questions today because I think we are still awaiting answers to those questions. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to submit them for the record, please. I'd like to ask you, sir, and the FBI, under your leadership, would you please respond to these questions, and can you commit to doing that?
As soon as the trial's over.
So, did you catch that? As soon as the trial is over? Who are you talking about? Matthew Thomas Crooks is dead. He was sniped in the head. It's pretty clear he got confused between Crooks and Ryan Ralph, right? The other attempt.
You think that's what happened? Oh my God.
I'm
That's generous.
And I'm giving damn generous at this point. Everyone's like, wait, hold on a second. What? Again, Crooks is dead. And remember this, all the files and everything that he pledged to release about the assassination, nothing. We still don't know anything. About Crooks, about motivation, there's been no transparency. They shut it down under the Kash Patel leadership.
Yeah.
It's one of the most nuts things, high-profile assassination attempts that's happened in modern memory of a literal, presidential candidate, former president. They got all up in arms about it, and they haven't released anything.
Yeah.
So
we know
this
more
is
about
a
Tyler
pattern.
Robinson
Yeah, you're
already
right. We do.
Than we do about him.
That's what I think Emily said it. We're like, look, I'm glad he's alive, because if he wasn't, it's gone. It's all gonna be under the rug. The fact that they have to put him on trial, also the fact the state is putting him on trial, makes a little bit less room for screwery. But we'll see.
Yeah, because my understanding is then the trial will be public too.
Exactly.
Whereas
And
the federal
there's
trials
discovery.
would not be.
It has to come out. The files. Everything will be. He either will testify in his own defense, or even already we know a ton because of a criminal complaint filed against him. We know something. Whether it's true or not, we'll get into there in a little bit. But considering the way that this guy is conducting himself, you cannot have confidence that he even knows at the very basics of what he's talking about. And that fits here, where a congressman asked him about Dylan Roof, who I would just generally guess that anybody tangentially involved in politics knows about Dylan Roof.
Absolutely.
Dylan Roof is, of course, the guy who killed, he was a white supremacist killer. He slaughtered in that church back in 2015. It was a huge moment, for the country. Remember, Obama was at the funeral. It was everywhere. Anybody who's even following politics, I think, would know who that is, let alone the top law enforcement officer of the country. Here, he says he doesn't even know who Dylan Roof is. Let's take a listen.
Dylan Roof, who followed white supremacist propaganda, murdered 9 black parishioners in Charleston in 2015. Do you deny that?
Sorry, Dylan Roof?
Roof?
Can you give me some more information?
You head of the FBI, you probably know this. If you don't know, that's fine. Okay.
You can give me a reminder. I've got a lot in front of me.
It was national news.
Oh my God. The crazy thing is that she doesn't just say, do you know who Dylan Roof is? It would still be bad because that's one of the names that is most familiar to people who are thinking about these horrific mass shootings, etc. Adam Lanza, he's in that, on that level of awareness. But it's not like she just even says, do you know who Dylan Roof is? She's like, in 2015, a white supremacist went and murdered black people in a church. His name was Dylan Roof. Are you aware of that? And he's like, never heard of him, don't know. You got to give me more info. What the? Like, I guess one explanation is obviously the direction she's probably going in is saying, listen, you're trying to paint all extremists as being left-wing. Isn't this an example of right-wing extremists? Here's the statistics. And maybe he doesn't want to go down that path, so he just tries to stop it at the beginning by pretending he doesn't know who Dylan Roof is. But I think he genuinely had no idea, and that is so insane. It's just like so insane that we are being ruled by the dumbest people possible. And, you know, I even from like a Trumpian lens, because what does he care about? Like the way you look and present on TV and like playing the part and being out of central casting doesn't exactly fit the mold there either, which is why apparently he's under some, you know, pressure and there's some possibility that he's gonna be ousted. But for now, it seems like they're keeping him in place. He has no faith. I mean, obviously, Democrats, independents, like they're like, this guy's a joke. But he's lost complete faith with the MAGA base as well. So, like, what are we doing here? This is absolutely stunning, stunningly bad.
Listen
One of the craziest things I've seen.
2015 was a federal prosecutor in the DOJ in the counterterrorism division.
Oh my God.
How do you not know? Dylan Roof had federal hate crime charges that were brought against him. Remember?
Yeah.
He's in prison.
Yeah.
He's in federal prison. I believe he's on death row. Wow.
And if you're like serious about
You're working here in Washington in the DOJ, and you don't know who Dylan Roof is?
If you're even remotely pretending to care about domestic, you know, extremism, and you don't know the basics of that, it's just, what can you even say? Like, it's such a joke. It's just such a joke.
I'm stunned. Yeah, actually, because I already knew it was bad. With this, I don't even know what to say.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show, ad-free, and in your inbox every morning, you can sign.
When you've got smoke-free satisfaction, you've got the freedom to do things your way. Get $20 off your first 5 cans of Zyn when you take the Zyn 10
The enemy
challenge.
has captured the control point.
Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
If you've been injured, call attorney John Foyne Associates today, proud partner of the Atlanta Braves. Here at John Foyne Associates, we're always looking to add top talent to our team. Don't think about yourself. You're a team player. Good. What are your strengths? Whether you're picking a lawyer or a new teammate, you gotta find the right fit. There's always room for improvement.
Morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Have an amazing show for everybody today. We have Crystal.
A lot to get to. We've got a bunch of news on the economy, including a Fed rate cut. We've got Cash Patel getting grilled and not acquitting himself that well. I don't know, English language is a struggle this morning, apparently. We've got a bunch of news with regard to Trump and an incredibly corrupt deal in the Middle East. And we also have the cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel, state-backed crackdown on media. A lot to get to there. And we have a guest, Robert Malley, who's been involved in negotiations, you know, under the Clinton administration to try to achieve state solutions. Now, a critic of that whole process. He's going to join us to talk about his new book and also the very latest developments in the Middle East. So certainly a lot to get to this morning.
Yeah, that's right. By the way, thank you to everybody who's been supporting the show. We really appreciate it. It's a crazy time here. I mean, you know, we were just talking before the show. ABC Disney is caving to government pressure. I don't really know what else we could say about how insane that is, but at the very least, you know, for all of those who are supporting us, we appreciate it. Let's go ahead and start with the economy. As Crystal said, let's put it up here on the screen. The Federal Reserve lowered interest rates by a quarter point, signaling more cuts are likely. This was in line with expectations from economists, which is why some of the market reaction was a little bit more muted. But, quote, concerns about a job market slowdown are overriding jitters about inflation and cuts on a pivot towards a shallow sequence of rate cuts. Jerome Powell expanded a little bit his view of the economy, inflation, slow job growth, and potential stagflation.
My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for while the unemployment rate remains low, it has edged up. Job gains have slowed, and downside risks to employment have risen. At the same time, inflation has risen recently and remains somewhat elevated. In support of our goals, and in light of the shift in the balance of risks, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to lower our policy interest rate by 1/4 percentage point. We also decided to continue to reduce our securities holdings. I'll have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Recent indicators suggest that growth of economic activity has moderated. GDP rose at a pace of around 1.5% in the first half of the year, down from 2.5% last year. The moderation in growth largely reflects a slowdown in consumer spending. In contrast, business investment in equipment and intangibles has picked up from last year's pace. Activity in the housing sector remains weak. In our summary of economic projections, the median participant projects GDP to rise 1.6% this year and 1.8% next year, a touch stronger than projected in June.
Important comments there about the job growth slowdown, and all of that is being backed up right now by hordes of other data. Let's go and put this up there on the screen from the Wall Street Journal. Quote, "The two-speed economy is back as low-income Americans give up gains. They say high earners and older Americans are faring better than ever, while fortunes and sliding again for low-wage and young workers." Probably synonymous there down at the bottom. They say for high earners and many older Americans, the economy looks robust. They are spending like gangbusters. Their 401ks and homes have soared in values. They nabbed 3% mortgage rates when they were low. Some might worry about AI eventually for their jobs, but for now the position looks very secure. What they point to, though, is that if you look at after-tax wages and salaries by household income, and it changed from a year earlier, you've seen a huge spike, actually, in the higher income household, but the lower income household has seen a significant decline. They also talk about the unemployment rate slowly creeping up, and more importantly, the ability to switch jobs being one that is probably more difficult than ever before. Remember that we had in 2021 or so that time when wages and competition and all there were made it so that lower income people largely could leverage their wage power by negotiation or going somewhere else. That's gone. It's actually flipped right now. Now is a very, very bad time to quit a job, or at least do so without having one lined up at a similar wage. A lot of people are reporting actually either lower wages, downsizing in the economy, lack of. For right now,
yeah, I was thinking about that as well. And a lot of people skipping meals, skipping breakfast to be able to make it work, and feelings about whether people should be eating a lot of McDonald's anyway, but it's certainly an indication.
Right, but if that's all you're eating, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, exactly, and certainly an indication of where the economy is. I mean, it makes sense. You have the stock market continuing to soar, backstopped by, AI, frankly speaking, generation haven't really come down. So there is a risk there. I think a lot of analysts feel that there is a bubble in the stock market. But for now, anyone who's an asset owner, which largely older people, they are benefiting. We've talked many times about the housing market struggles. Prices continue to be quite high. I also saw new housing starts are down, so there's less housing that's being constructed. Mortgage rates are high, so very difficult to get your foot on that ladder of home ownership. But if you already own a home, then you have that equity, you have that asset backing your net worth. So the country really coming apart in these two directions, which is why you see these sort of contradictory indications of where the economy is. Although frequently outside of the stock market, most of the indications are looking pretty clear that we are heading towards a downturn if we're not already in one, and very likely stagflation. And that's what Jerome Powell's comments really indicate. They are cutting rates because they're concerned about growth, they're concerned about unemployment. We've seen jobs numbers coming in very low. As Sagar was indicating, you now have too many people and too few jobs, so they're cutting rates for that reason. Tariffs in particular are impacting prices. So really not a great landscape out there economically.
Consumer debt is also a big problem right now. Let's go put this up here on the screen. Credit scores are now dropping at the fastest pace since the Great Recession. They say the national average FICO score has dropped by 2 points this year since 2009. Although the credit score does remain higher than during the Great Recession, they are down for the second year in a row. FICO found growing share of borrowers are falling behind on car loans, credit cards, and personal loans. Younger Americans in particular are, quote, exposed to the double whammy of high student debt and low entry-level hiring under more financial pressure. Gen Z borrowers experiencing an average credit score drop of 3 points, the biggest decline of any age group since 2020 during the pandemic, according to FICO data, including, by the way, where things are. It's reached now. It's one of the most unaffordable times of all history. Far surpassing where things were in 2006. This chart is calling it the 2005 bubble. I'm still not even really sure if that's accurate. One of the things that drove the 2006 and the demand is very, very high because everybody needs a place to live, and with growing population, but the point about affordability remains standard. Even with the quarter point cut, it's still not going to make a meaningful dent in what your mortgage payment would have been compared to a couple of years ago, and it puts tremendous pressure on people who are even potentially trying to save up. Because think about this, you not only have to save up the down payment if you want to avoid PMI, you also, though, are going to have to allocate so much more of your after-tax income to a potential mortgage, which is going to be double than what it was 3 years ago. And in this particular housing market, that also means you're probably going to get like half of what you originally, half of the type of house. I've read a lot of stories about people with 3 or 4 kids who are locked in a much smaller house because they had a bunch of kids who were like, we can't leave. They're like, we can't afford it. You know, literally, if we could sell it, but then we'd have to buy something else at a current mortgage rate. We would not be we'll just work. Those are people lucky enough to have a house. We're already 27, 28, kind of thinking about it. It's a tough time right now.
Looking for your next rental?
We have control of the point.
No matter what kind of rental you're looking for, go to
Payments are falling during the drive into fall event at Yen Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Start the season in a new Jeep with payments starting from $260 per month. Shop now. YenChryslerJeepDodge.net.
I think to go back to the credit score thing too, I mean, that's a really troubling indication that people's credit scores are falling. I mean, that's a great point too, is that makes it even more difficult to be able to get a mortgage if that's something that you're looking at. I mean, it just complicates your entire financial life, but it's also an indication that people are using more and more debt to try to maintain and then falling behind on debt payments. There's a chart out there as well that you guys can go and take a look at of student loan delinquencies over 90 days. And when I tell you the way that that thing spiked, it's, again, very troubling. And I think longer term too, you know, zooming out from the present moment and the economic circumstances, understanding of what you needed to do to like achieve that middle class life. It's like, go to college, take on the debt, but you're gonna get paid back in your career, and it's gonna be fine, and you'll get health care from your job, etc. And if you look at the unemployment rate now for college graduates, that rate is high. So there's no longer any certainty. High school, thinking about where to go to college and what to do with her life, etc. And I have no real answers for her, because as closely as I follow this, like, no one knows what the impact of AI is going to be. No one knows what this country and the world is going to look like in a few years. So kids her age who are trying to make these decisions for their lives and do the right thing and set themselves up, they're at a loss for how to just do the basics of establishing themselves at this point.
I know, it's really devastating. On the student debt piece, with the higher interest rates, I think that maybe, hopefully this is a PSA. There are a lot of people who listen to the show who are younger, or maybe you have a younger brother or a sibling. Be very careful about student debt. Internalize actually looks like relative to your potential income in the future. Because these things just sound like gobbledygook when you sign a paper and you're 18 years old. You don't truly understand the impact of what $2,200 a month is actually going to look like, even if you're a doctor and you're making $80,000, $90,000 a year as a resident, even at $200,000-300K. Okay, so look, that's objectively a lot of money. Well, let's say a third of that goes to tax, so now you're at 200, and your student loan servicing, even $70,000, you're making $130. You live in Chicago, New York, Washington D.C., L.A. I mean, you're not living the high life, Doc. Like, you need to really internalize that. Dentists is the same way. People look at it, they're like, oh, it's a great way to get rich. I'm like, you're not a 1980s orthodontist who was able to get their little dental degree and then, make a shitload of money selling kids braces. It doesn't work like that anymore in the private equity economy. Veterinarians is everybody has this dream, like, I'm gonna own my own little practice. That's not how it works in 2025. Private equity's rolled all these people up. You are a W-2 employee. Your upside is capped dramatically. Maybe it works in a small town, but where I live and where the vast majority of the U.S. population lives, that is not how it works anymore. Plumber, even, some of the traditional blue-collar trades, a lot of that has been rolled up. So if you were at more of a mercy of corporate power and your upside is way more capped than any time in the future, please be careful, because I've seen it in my own life. People who are chained, they have no choice. And sometimes life will hit you, you'll have a kid, and you're like, I don't even want to have friends going through this right now. I don't even want to work. Guess what? You got no choice. Your ass is going to work, and you're going to pay $60,000 a year for daycare and for your debt servicing. Now you have barely enough money where if you get to go out a couple times a week to eat, you're lucky.
Yeah.
These are people who are making big money. And so imagine if you're making $65,000.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
And what has basically, the core building blocks of, we've talked about this a million times, of like a basic middle class life have gotten so wildly expensive. Housing, education, healthcare. So expensive, okay? And what has kept people satiated is their ability to buy a bunch of random crap, right? And so we have this illusion, and we see everybody in nice clothes and nice car and, like going about life looking like they're affluent. And yet those pieces are increasingly out of reach. And so what the tariffs do is they make that stuff also more expensive. So you're getting squeezed from all directions, and that is really starting to show up in the economic numbers at this point, which is why, if we can put a 6 on the screen, Trump has an idea. How about we just don't look at the economic numbers anymore? Trump proposed that we end quarterly earnings report. The SEC says that they are prioritizing that, and we've had a bunch of, it's no mystery why he's doing this. We had a bunch of Trump world officials come out and say, yeah, the economic landscape is not great now, but just wait a year, it's gonna be great. We're gonna get the great American comeback. Like, don't pay attention to these numbers now. And so between the firing of the head of the BLS and the pressure on the Fed, and then this attempt to make it so that corporations aren't actually having to come forward and report to the public what their earnings are on a quarterly basis, they are just trying to either manipulate or hide the numbers of what's really going on, so that people, as if people can't tell in their own lives what the economic reality is. And so, Trump has tremendous abilities to create a false reality, create a false impression. And even when it comes to the economy, some of that works. If you've ever seen the polls where it's like, when Trump gets sworn in, suddenly Republicans feel great about the economy, and suddenly Democrats feel terrible about the economy. And if a Democrat were to get elected, then it would totally flip. But you still have a lot of people who have an independent sense of, am I making it at the end of the month? Am I able to pay my bills? Do I have hope for my kids and what their future is? Like, what are prices? What are prices this year versus last year, et cetera? And so I think that the reality distortion mechanisms he's trying to employ here to hide the truth from people about the reality of the economy, I think they will have limited effect since we all have our own individual, personal, daily experience with how things are going.
Yeah, I mean, that happened under Biden. I've said it a million times. The S&P 500 was up 60% over the total of Biden's presidency. And people still said, what? The economy sucks. Right? It's not like the disconnect is dramatic. And by the way, people even saw some wage growth under Biden. But, and of course they would hammer that home, the greatest economy, we built back better. And people were like, yeah, but the wage increase doesn't keep up with healthcare and education and cost of living and housing, and I could go on forever, right? And so
I can't buy steak anymore at the grocery store.
Right? Yeah,
you know?
Steak is unironically, if you see somebody eating steak once a week, you're like, this fucker is rich.
It's insanely expensive.
Yeah, it's crazy if you look at the grocery store sticker. And if you like to buy like decent stuff, like stuff that's grass-fed or anything, good luck to you.
Yeah.
And I see it all the time. And it's funny, be at the grocery store and you see the meat section or any of this. In my opinion, this could be totally, subjective. I see less people do it. I see less people there. I genuinely do, who are picking stuff out. Or you always see, the clearance section or the stuff with the deals and all that. It's like cleaned out. That I go. Maybe it's just where I live, but I'm just saying that's my own personal experience. Generally, I will say on this Trump thing, I know why he's doing it. I think it's kind of a good idea. And the reason why is that I know why he's doing it, but quarterly earnings actually are like a really perverse incentive. And the idea that you have to release quarterly earnings is basically all built around like constant check-ins in the company so that the stock price is fluctuating. It's what also encourages a lot of companies right before earnings to try and juice things or
stock buybacks, or
exactly.
This or that. And there's all kinds of financial manipulation.
If you look at more stable countries, maybe I've been sounding a lot like a China fanboy recently, but I think there's a lot to learn from them. They have a very different way of reporting financials, and one of the reasons why is because they think shareholderism itself is bad. I've talked about how the Shanghai Stock Exchange is relatively flat to 2009, even though the country's become dramatically richer, more innovative, much more better off for the average citizen, and not necessarily for the financial engineers in their capital markets. I think that's kind of how a good society should look. So we should ask broader questions here, not just about quarterlies, but about a bigger thing about reporting earnings and what it means for like how we think about companies' economic health, because your ability to buy back stock is not in any way reflective of your actual value, both to society or to your consumers. It's only to the shareholder. So shareholderism itself is horrible. Quarterly is part of that. Everything is designed, I think, for the top, private hedge funds and all of these other people, or the, asset class people who own millions of dollars in stocks or 401k holders. And that's fine. I mean, that's the social contract. That's how we all get rich, allegedly, is like just auto buy the S&P 500. And that does usually work because that's how the system is worked up. But my point would be that you're not actually getting a lot richer, or at least the people who have a lot of money are. But for the vast majority, I don't really think that's how it's working out.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I also have no illusion that it would take a lot bigger changes to the economy. It would change an entire reorientation of our economy to change shareholderism, short-term thinking, and the financialization of every aspect of our economy. And so, in my view, this change is just meant to provide cover to Trump and hide the reality of what's going on as we enter a period that they know well and good is going to be quite ugly for most Americans.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show, ad-free, and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.
At Burger King, you write the rules of value.
If you're rule number 105, Cineminis are part of the meal.
No. It's the whole meal. You can choose all Cine Minis with the $5 duo or $7 trio.
John Deere has long been a symbol of hardworking America, and now that spirit is coming to America's most comfortable footwear, Skechers. With rugged materials, innovative technology, and comfort features like Skechers air-cooled memory foam, because hard work deserves the easy comfort of John Deere and Skechers.
We talked a lot here on the show about inflation, about tariffs, and what the overall effect will be. But one of the things that we may have discounted is greed. All right, some major breaking news over now. ABC Disney has officially pulled late-night host Jimmy Kimmel's show, quote, indefinitely after remarks about Charlie Kirk. So we thought that we would start here with the actual comments themselves so that we can prejudge it. We could talk about that, and then the extraordinary action that has since followed, where it appears that the government, the FCC, put tremendous pressure on ABC News, on ABC, on Disney, on ABC affiliates, including potentially saying that they would block mergers in order to compel this extraordinary action. So with that, let's actually start with the comments. Let's see what Jimmy Kimmel himself said.
We had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition. Construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish.
Okay, so that was the segment. What everybody in particular was very upset with him over was, he said, MAGA tried desperately to convince people that the shooter was not one of them. I mean, obviously, given what we know about the text messages and some of the potential motivation, or at the very least, does not appear as if the Tyler Robinson was, quote, one of them. So, yeah, does Jimmy look stupid for that comment? Yes. Are you allowed to be stupid in this country? Yes. Are you allowed to be wrong in this country? Presumably, yes. This ignited a massive witch hunt online, and which led to pressure in several different areas. And that's why I want to be careful about how I describe them. First and foremost was on the affiliates of ABC, which air Jimmy Kimmel's show. Now, there was some indication prior to the comments of the FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr about ABC and about Jimmy Kimmel that they were going in that direction. So that was some genuine business pressure where people who were ABC affiliates who air Kimmel's show were upset with what he said. They have markets in conservative areas, and they said, hey, Disney, we may be pulling this. But that did not lead to the Disney actual decision. What led to the decision was an extraordinary comment here by the FCC commissioner, who appeared right before the news broke, actually on Benny Johnson's show, and laid it out very specifically, quote, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, about both Nexstar, which is a company which is ABC affiliate and airs much of Kimmel, and on ABC and Disney. Here is what the FCC commissioner, Brendan Carr, had to say D3 Guys is playing.
Frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or, you know, there's going to be additional work for the FCC. Again, there's actions that we can take on licensed broadcasters, and frankly, I think that it's really sort of past time that a lot of these licensed broadcasters themselves push back on Comcast and Disney and say, listen, we are going to preempt, we are not going to run Kimmel anymore until you straighten this out, because we licensed broadcaster, are running the possibility of fines or license revocation from the FCC if we continue to run content that ends up being a pattern of news distortion.
If you're launching a new business or have been successfully running one for years, finding the best insurance coverage for your commercial vehicle is crucial. Whether your business is landscaping, cleaning, home improvement, or food trucks, a commercial commercial auto insurance policy can help protect you and your business. When it comes to finding the perfect partner for your commercial auto insurance needs, look no further than Infinity Insurance Agency. We go the extra mile. By accepting foreign licenses, offering discounts for various criteria, such as having prior coverage, paid in full, and multiple insured vehicles. Customizable coverages, payment options, and policy discounts to help you find an insurance policy that works for your budget. Even if you have a less than perfect driving record, IIA can help you find policies tailored to your specific situation. Secure your business on the road with IIA, your trusted partner in commercial auto insurance.
Names going micro. Micro habits, micro wins, microdose GLP-1s.
Help! Oh, hi! What's happening? I've been here for months and my weight won't budge. I'm stuck.
Been there. With Noom's microdoses of motivation and microdose GLP-1s can help.
Bye-bye, plateau!
Hello! Micro changes, big results. Get started at Noom.com. Welcome to the Micro
Okay, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And it's almost moments, literally, after that interview aired, that ABC announced that it would indefinitely pull the Jimmy Kimmel show. So we've shown you the comments, we've shown you the FCC commissioner, and I've also contextualized for all of you that there was some genuine business reaction from ABC affiliates. Now, there are various different definitions of fights that happen. There's a question about whether this was a government-compelled action to censor Jimmy Kimmel. I think it is unambiguous, given what the FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr said, that it is a textbook definition of job hoarding. For people who don't know what that term is, it kind of the idea is that public pressure and statements from the government itself are used as a matter to compel private business action. In this case, the FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr has tremendous power, not only over ABC and Disney, but also over this Nexstar organization. So for context, last month, the Nexstar Media Group, which is the largest owner of these local TV stations in the U.S., announced its intention to purchase its largest rival called Tegna. This was a $6.2 billion acquisition. And it used the FCC to specifically lift its own rules of a 39% cap on the number of households one company is permitted to reach through a television station ownership. FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr in May suggested his mind was open to repealing this limit. However, it of course leads to his own discretion.
Right.
So Nexstar was already under pressure, it appears, and had to give something to the FCC. And this was a very easy way to do that, which ultimately led to Jimmy Kimmel being canceled there by ABC News, or sorry, by ABC and Disney, which is, I mean, look, guys, this is one of the largest media conglomerates. Let's be very clear. And the fact is that they caved to this specifically, I believe, because of the FCC's statements.
Yeah.
I just don't see, personally, unless all the vast majority of the affiliates came out and said we won't air it, that then they will do it. And by the way, if that's how it happens, it's a business decision. Look, on Jimmy Kimmel, I haven't watched the show in probably, I don't know, the last time he went viral for me was when I was in college on those Matt Damon things, you know? I mean, it was a long time ago. The Damon show. Like, that is the only reference I have for Jimmy Kimmel, when he was dating, like, Sarah Silverman. That's it. That's all I got. I know nothing else about the guy. I'm pretty sure his ratings were a disaster. In a decade, it's certainly not on the air, but it is very obvious that this is a result of FCC pressuring, job, etc., textbook definitions of the case. And the fact is, you know, a lot of people are trying to cope and be like, oh, it's a business decision. I'm like, well, they should have let it play out. It was actually as a result of that. So that's the full context that everybody needs for the story. And I believe that if you put all those facts together, it's inescapable.
Yeah, I mean, the timeline is Jimmy makes his comments. There is, you know, a firestorm online of backlash about this. Brendan Carr comes out and says, we wear the hard way, calls directly on affiliate owners like Nexstar to pull the program. Nexstar is looking to get their merger approved and requires the approval of Brendan Carr, and lo and behold, they come out and say, oh, we are gonna do what you would like, Commissioner. We are gonna pull that program, and ABC under pressure decides. And by the way, how weak of them, but you know, this is where we are. How many media organizations have we engaged at this point to try to threat? And that's the broader context too, is that this is like not even close to the first attack on the First Amendment, with regards to the media. You know, Ryan and Emily were just covering yesterday the mass consolidation of everybody's CBS, possibly CNN, TikTok. Already Twitter is owned by a Trump ally under the hands of direct Trump allies who also happen to be extremely, you know, pro-Zionist and anti-Palestine. So you have that broader context too that you have to consider. We can put D6B up on the screen in case you had any question about where this decision making came from. One ABC insider told Rolling Stone, quote, they were pissing themselves all day. Hours leading up to the decision to pull Kimmel, two sources familiar say senior execs at ABC, Disney, and affiliates convened emergency meetings to figure out how to minimize the damage. Multiple executives felt that Kimmel had not actually said anything over the line, the two sources say, but the threat of Trump administration retaliation loomed. So it wasn't a grassroots, you know, cancellation effort and, oh, his ratings are bad anyway, so let's just go ahead and pull the plug. They explicitly say the executives had no issue with what he said, and they were worried about the Trumpian administration. When you have Brendan Carr out there saying we can do this the easy way or the hard way, it just becomes completely undeniable what is going on here. And guys, for me, you know, Saga can speak for himself. It's a dark moment. It's a dark moment. Like I said, it's not like this is the first thing I mentioned before, the lawsuit against the New York Times, which also just happened, I believe, this week. But when you have so many corporations just completely capitulating, when you have these types of brazen, illegal threats being made out in the open over, I mean, yeah, it was a dumb comment. I mean, this is like not remotely even close to anything that's like wildly offensive or over the line. Like, it's not even borderline to me. It's crazy. And probably the part Trump liked the least was the legitimate joke about, like, this guy is supposed to be so close to you just died and you can't even spend 2 sentences talking about him before you're on to your construction project. In addition, Trump had threatened Kimmel before and predicted that he would be, quote, the next to go. We can put D2 up on the screen. Everybody is saying I was solely responsible for the firing of Stephen Colbert from CBS Late Night. That is not true. The reason he was fired is a pure lack of talent. In fact, this deficiency was costing CBS $50 million a year in losses, and it was only getting worse. Next up will be an even less talented Jimmy Kimmel, and then a weak and very insecure Jimmy Fallon. The only real question is who will go first. Showbiz and television, very simple business. If you get ratings, you can say or do anything. If you don't, you'll always become a victim. So he says there, he predicts. They find a pretext to put pressure on Kimmel, to put pressure on ABC, and to cause his removal as well. And I have no doubt that the other 2 remaining late night hosts are going to be next, because Trump is saying that outright. He is predicting that outright. And, you know, some of the Cope saga that I've seen is like, okay, well, these are mainstream institutions, they suck anyway. You know, people are moving away from them anyway, the ratings suck, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, guys, if you think, if like Disney can't stand up to the Trump administration, what, you think we have a chance? Like any independent media outlet. I mean, they quash us like a bug in a heartbeat the minute that they decide to. We know Charlie Kirk, who is as close aligned with the Trump administration as you could possibly be. Even he was coming under pressure because he, you know, had some qualms about the Iran strikes and was not 100 million% towing the line on Israel, like just even allowing some other voices in. He was under tremendous pressure. Like, this is an incredibly dark landscape. And the hypocrisy point goes, I mean, I'm sick of saying it at this point, but some of the same, Brendan Carr himself was out there. You can go and back and look look at his Twitter timeline, and it's tweet after tweet after tweet about jawboning, about government censorship, about free speech, about how the government shouldn't have been in, the Twitter files, and how the government shouldn't have been involved, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is so far beyond anything, and we objected to the things the Biden administration did, by the way. This is so far beyond anything that they did. It is in a completely different category. And look, there's Brendan Carr completely turning on a dime now that he has power because he knows the assignment. If he is going to stay in that position and keep his title and keep his power, he is going to operate the way Donald Trump wants him to operate. And that is what this is.
It's terrifying, honestly. It's just like we were, I was thinking back, you remember the day after Charlie was shot, we did was killed. We did our show. It was on 9/11, and in the reminder, what was said, Bill Maher, I'm not a fan of. I don't think that's a secret. He was on a show called, and he said something about how actually the 9/11 hijackers were not cowards because it actually took a lot of courage to get themselves into a building. He was that's exactly what some 24 years to the day. That happened on September 17, 2001. And in the very similar context, Ari Fleischer, the White House press secretary, went on the White House podium and said that people should be careful about what they say on TV. That is literally the only precedent I can think of for something like this. That is not where I want to be again.
Yeah.
And in fact, like you said about the hypocrisy, what makes this worse for me in particular is that, okay, so why did you come on why did you on Glenn Greenwald's show? Why did you tweet about censorship, about jawboning, and recognize the grave threats of government censorship? Like, for example, when the Biden White House is pressuring the original Twitter to cancel Alex Berenson for spreading what he, for anti-COVID vaccine views, I objected to that. When the FBI was asking Twitter to take down, election, quote, denial posts or whatever, I thought it was outrageous. That is nothing compared to this. Like, this is a completely other level. And also, I see a lot of liberals, Dan Pfeiffer, I just saw this week, he was like, cowardly Disney. To be honest, what are you supposed to do? Disney is a shareholder-driven, has a fiduciary responsibility to make these people even own news organizations. Imagine. Destroy them. They can literally just cancel the visas or whatever if they want to for the amusement park business. Or they can mess up their broadcast licenses. Or, I could go on forever. It's a massive conglomerate. We can think about Harvard University or CBS. The totality of the government's power is such that if it's going to be used in this, the biggest people can't stand up and neither can the smallest. Nobody really has anything to say in the face of this. Like, it's not possible. That's why you were saying, like, you can be quashed. Yes, you actually can. Like, that is the reality. And we had some binding, organized norms, but, like, the truth is like, does it matter if it's going to happen anyways? No, it really doesn't.
Right, and the courts aren't going to save you. Look at the Supreme Court. They've given him everything practically everything he's wanted. They'll just use the shadow docket to push it down the road, let him get away with it. So many of these news organizations have already been, and I want to emphasize the broader landscape here. You now have these massive conglomerates in the hands of Trump allies. We're talking about CBS, likely CNN, they're trying to buy. You're going to have HBO, with John Oliver, for those of you who are John Oliver fans, and obviously he's very critical of Trump and does effectively some investigative reporting. That could be in danger. You have the TikTok sale into the hands of the same family would be involved with that. And then you have, and by the way, there's reading this morning now that they and you have Twitter already in the hands of Elon Musk. This really is like textbook what Orban did in Hungary. You threaten and cajole media organizations that your allies don't directly own so that they bend the knee. And then you have allies who are in charge, who run these other giant conglomerates that just basically become like state media. And that's where we are. That is where we are. It's not coming. It's not a threat. Like, we are here. And it's extremely dark. It is extremely dark. You know, to your point about, well, what could they do? I mean, I think, listen, I do think it's cowardly for, you know, these companies, but I also am under no illusions. Like, you know, I'm a leftist. I understand where capitalist bread is butter. They're never going to save you from fascism. You can't rely on them for that. The best you can do is have counter pressure so that they feel like, okay, well, I know what the cost is for going against Trump. Is there going to be a cost for bending to Trump? Right? Is there going to be a cost in viewership? Is there going to be a cost for my workers? Is there going to be cost from a future potential Democratic administration to try to change the calculus? But you can't rely on them to be heroes here. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, that's why I
never going to happen.
This. Like, oh, Disney's like, no. Like, hey, here's the thing. Again, what are you supposed to do? Like, you want to invite massive legal pressure from the U.S. government over one of the most regulated businesses in the world, which is network television? Look, it's the same when we thought earlier, remember with the George Stephanopoulos case that they settled? That's just the reality of what it is. And that's...
Well, and this government has demonstrated their willingness to use every facet of government to destroy you, to, you know, block your deals and, you know, deny your visas or, you know, put you on blast and, you know, create some news cycle around how terrible you are. Like, they will do anything to get their way. And, you know, this is such a clear-cut, dire example. Because, again, listen, like the joke, it wasn't even a joke. It was stupid, right? It was stupid.
It was also literally not true. Like, it was factually incorrect about...
Fine,
yeah.
Issue a correction.
Right. Yes.
Like, that's the way that goes. And then at the same time, I mean, let's not also be precious about this. Like, Ted Cruz was out there lying about Melissa Hortman's killer and what their political affiliation was. I seem to recall when Mike Lee was out there joking about the guy who tried to murder Paul Pelosi and beat him over the head with a hammer and fractured his skull. So, you know, like, let's not be precious about the way everybody is trying to characterize these political attempted assassins and killers.
Yeah, I think, was Mike Lee, did he do the, I thought he made a joke. I don't think it was about Paul Pelosi. I think it was about the...
Portman?
Yeah, it was, he said something like Nightmare on Wall Street.
Well, there were a ton, yeah, thank you for the correction. I don't want to also be wrong and
I was going to say.
Be canceled.
I'm doing this to cover our own asses.
But there were plenty on the right who thought it was hilarious and made up all kinds of lies about the lunatic who came to try to kidnap Nancy Pelosi and instead beat Paul Pelosi over the head with a hammer. You can certainly go back and take a look at that. But, you know, we all know what this is about. Trump set him in his sights. He said Jimmy Kimmel is next. And the moment they had a pretext, Brennan Carr comes out, threatens them, threatens Nexstar. And do we have the what Sinclair has decided they're going to do?
Sinclair says that Kimmel's suspension is not enough, calls on FCC and ABC to take additional action. Sinclair urges ABC stations to air a special in remembrance of Charlie Kirk during Jimmy Kimmel's live time slot on Friday. As discussed with ABC earlier today, Sinclair decided to indefinitely preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live beginning today. Following these discussions, ABC has suspended production of Jimmy Kimmel Live. They go on and say that special ABC stations will air a special in remembrance of Charlie Kirk this Friday during Jimmy Kimmel's live slot. The special will also air across all Sinclair stations this weekend. In addition, Sinclair is offering the special to all ABC affiliates across the country. Sinclair will not lift the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel Live on our stations until formal discussions with ABC and their commitment to professionalism and accountability. They also called on Kimmel to issue a direct apology to the Charlie. They asked Mr. Kimmel to make a new
we're trying to compel a personal donation from Jimmy Kimmel to Turning Point USA and the Kirk family directly and airing a Charlie Kirk special in lieu of Jimmy Kimmel. Like, is unreal. They are right-wing. Yeah, and Nexstar is too, by the way. Isn't that the one that Alex Acosta is on the board of?
No, that's Newsmax, I think. Well, I need to look at the difference. Nexstar?
News Nation is owned by Nexstar.
Yes, that's
which also owns our lawyer, The Hill.
God, yes. You guys want to see how nice it is not to be? Imagine trying to cover this. Imagine trying to cover this while working over there. By the way, this is how's ABC News going to cover this shit?
Yeah.
They're owned by Jimmy Kimmel, or owned by Disney.
They will be quaking in their boots. Every one of them.
You can't say anything. Also, yeah.
And your company has made it clear they're not going to stand up for you.
Look at CNN.
You're on your own.
How is CNN going to cover it? CNN CNN is literally about to get bought, potentially, or at least there's an all-cash offer out there by to buy WBD, Warner Brothers Discovery, of CNN. So what are they going to say? Because if you say something, you're probably going to get axed if you get bought. And then on the other hand, Fox News, oh yeah, Fox has no problem whatsoever the FCC. Or of course, they'll get a free pass potentially under this.
Well, Brendan Carr went on with Sean Hannity last night to brag about all of it. I mean, they're taking credit for it. Like, that's the thing, is you can't delude yourself. They are taking credit for it. When the news came out, Brendan Carr replied to a reporter with like a victorious emoji. I mean, it's just like, it's undeniable what is going on. They want people to know, they want media companies to know that this was them, that they did it. We can put D7 up on the screen. This is the reaction from Fire. They said the government pressured ABC to pay the time of ABC's decision on the heels of the FCC chairman's pledge to assuring that the administration will continue to extort and exact retribution on broadcasters and publishers who criticize it. We cannot be a country where late-night talk show hosts serve at the pleasure of the president, but until institutions have a backbone and learn to resist government pressure, that is the country we are. So there you go. And last piece here, you know, like this is just the beginning of the threatened crackdown. We can put D8 up on the screen. Trump says, I'm pleased to inform our many USA patriots I'm designating Antifa a hastily dangerous radical left disaster as a major terrorist organization. Also, he's strongly recommending those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. He did something similar to this in the short term. Antifa is not actually a real thing. Like, it's not like an organization the way that you think of an organization. Anti-fascism is an ideology opposing fascism, and then there's, you know, Antifa is associated with like a series of confrontational tactics, but it's not like a real thing. So, you know, remains to be seen what actual impact this has, because he did try to do the same thing the first time, but they are using the assassination of Charlie Kirk to further crush dissent, punish their political opponents, and consolidate power. That's what he does. If it wasn't this, it would be something else. And also like a very heated, emotional climate in which to try to do these things, and you know, that's where we are. This is the first like clear-cut action under this new, it's not new, but an escalation of the previous tactics of the Trump administration to use any sort of crisis, emergency, or invented crisis or emergency to crush dissent and consolidate power, and that's where we are.
Yeah, this is literally, I mean, I just looked at 24 years and 1 day to the day since Bill Maher was canceled. Under pressure from the Bush administration.
And let me say too, like, his thing was more provocative. I don't defend him being fired.
So here's what he said.
It was definitely more provocative than this.
But here's the thing. This is what I've come to take away. The worst. I saw a really insightful where when Tucker recently said something about Bin Laden, and somebody was like, "Oh, Tucker would have been the guy today who would have interviewed Bin Laden after 9/11." And someone said, "Can you imagine how different history would have been if someone had interviewed Bin Laden after 9/11?" And that's really stuck with me, because the fact is that the inability to discuss, to talk, and to have any fulsome conversation about foreign policy or about the reasons that happened led to the disastrous 20-year experiment in Afghanistan. It destroyed, bankrupted the entire country, not to mention all of the downstream consequences and millions of lives, you know, that were killed. Here's what Bill Maher said. He said, quote, "We have been cowards lobbing cruise missiles from 2,000 miles away. That's cowardly. Staying in the airplane when it hits a building, say what you want about it. It's not cowardly." And, yeah, I mean, look, that is a crazy thing to say. But what is the crux of what he's trying to say? Is that U.S. military adventurism has led to blowback, right? That was the theory that was put forth by leftists and libertarians after the immediate aftermath of 9/11. And then when the Gen Z Zoomers rediscovered the Bin Laden letter, they were like, wait, this wasn't just because they, quote, hated us for our freedoms. Some of them did, okay? Some of them actually did. They were crazy. Some of them were used, like, in political terrorism ideology, would use legitimate grievances to say that is why an indictment of the American people. But imagine if we'd actually had that type of conversation, and that's exactly why his cancellation and the eventual praise by the Bush administration was a tone of how things were then to come, when in 2002, we all started talking about yellow uranium and cheerleading. We don't want the smoking gun be a mushroom cloud that we invade the country of Iraq. Like, you may think I'm exaggerating. I watched all this shit happen in my entire life. The only reason I'm here is to fight against it. So to see it happen again, I don't know. It's sick.
Yeah,
it
really is. I think that's the best way to put it. All right, we've got a really insightful guest standing by. I just wrote a book on the failures of the Israelis and the Palestinians.
If you want to get the video, hit the like button or leave a comment. It really helps get the show to more.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. The full show helps for the future independent media. breakingpoints.com.
You know what they say.
Ich blute!
You get out,
Kopfschuss!
you two steps ahead, you a step ahead. New game, same dedication. No ads. You don't need Wi-Fi. This is a game. It is.
Davon kannst du noch viel mehr haben! Mach dir nicht schwer, Kumpel! Verdammt! Patronen alle! Lade nach!
So this is an extraordinary development that I really wanted to make sure to get in the show, even though there's so much going on. The New York Times did an investigation into this deal that was cut. We can put this up on the screen, involving Steve Witkoff here. Keep this up for a second. So the headline here is Anatomy of Two Giant Deals. The UAE got shit, and the Trump team got crypto riches. So it all comes back to this Sheikh who's in charge of their sovereign wealth fund. So at the same time that he was investing $2 billion in World Liberty Financial, which is the crypto company that's owned by the Witkoff and the Trump families, at the same time, the White House decided to give the UAE something they have sought for years, which is access to the most sophisticated chips that they're looking for AI. David Sachs, also involved in brokering this deal, Sachs being Trump's AI and crypto czar. So, he doesn't have a direct stake in, like, World Liberty Financial, but he has a stake in this industry more broadly and stands to potentially benefit from this deal as well. So let me read you some of the details here, and forgive me for going long, but I want to make sure people understand how this went down and what the New York Times is asserting. So they say in May, Witkoff's son Zach announced the first of the deals at a conference in Dubai. One of Sheikh Tahnoon's investment firms will deposit $2 billion into World Liberty Financial, a startup founded by the Witkoffs and the Trumps. 2 weeks later,
break free with the new Opera GX, the browser that puts you in control, with a brand new design that frees up even more pixels for personalization and an inventory of features to up your game at every level. Like GX Control to help rein in your resources with integrated limiters for RAM, CPU, and network. A sidebar for direct access to your favorite side quests, streams, and posts. And built-in privacy tools like ad and tracker blockers and free no-log VPN. Check into GX Corner for the latest news, deals, and free games. But what really makes our hit different is mods, giving you the power to change everything from animated wallpapers to themes, sounds, music, and shaders, so you can change everything. Get Opera GX.
Hey, guess what?
the White House agreed to allow the UAE access to hundreds of thousands of the world's most advanced and scarce computer chips, a crucial tool in the high-stakes race to dominate artificial intelligence. Many of the chips would go to G42. That is a sprawling tech firm controlled by that same sheikh. Despite national security concerns shared with China, those negotiations involved another key White House official with ties to the tech industry in the Middle East. That would be David Sachs. So they have a quick summary here. They say, okay, so number one, Steve Witkoff advocated to give the Emiratis access to those chips at the same time that they were landing that crypto investment. Number two, Sachs being a key figure in the chip negotiations, raising alarm even from some Trump administration officials who believed it was in deals that could benefit his industry. Number three, a senior executive based in the UAE worked simultaneously for world liberty and for the Sheikh's between those two companies while the Emiratis were pushing to gain this access to the AI chips. And finally, some Trump administration officials who were trying to limit that chips deal were fired after Laura Loomer jumped in and said, you know, these people are undermining you and they need to be pushed out. So listen, even putting aside whether you think they should have access to these chips or not have access to the chips or whatever, people deserve to feel like foreign policy, especially significant national security decisions, are being made on behalf of the country and not in the interest of Trump and his shady crypto deals. His net worth has exploded during this presidency. Exploded. I saw a figure that, you know, it's hard to tell exactly, but the bulk of his net worth has now been acquired since he regained the presidency. And a lot of it, Sauter, comes back to these crypto investments. I mean, they are such a clear-cut vessel for the most brazen corruption you can possibly imagine. And then when you loop in Steve Witkoff, who has been, you know, at the center of deals with, you know, trying to negotiate with Israel and Hamas, with Ukraine, with Iran. I'm sure there are many more instances that I could go on and on. And he also is involved in the crypto stuff. This is just, I mean, it's like world historic, out in the open, brazen corruption, and it's insane.
Well, especially David is basically a libertarian on these issues. Like, he has a tweet out today about why NVIDIA and all of those people should be allowed to sell into China. This is like consistent with his worldview. What I think is very egregious is the Witkoff deal, where you have the UAE invest. Remember, also, it's really not just Witkoff. It's Jared Kushner and it's all these other people. So Steve Mnuchin, his former secretary, the Saudis, the UAE, all these other people have pumped money into their firm specifically for this to also then get more beneficial deals. What's crazy is that the World Liberty financial deal involves the Trump family and directly is linked to their overall net worth. So that's the question. I mean, even they talk about Laura Loomer, one of the people that I believe that was after his fight, the last name is here in Washington, to scare the shit out of you. It's by Douglas Fight. I believe it's David's his father, who was one of the chief architects of the war in Iraq. So yeah, I'm not crying any tears here. I'm not really sure why he's in the first place.
Well, I think he was in the first Trump administration.
He was.
And he's been a China hawk. I mean, back when that was like a hallmark of Trumpianism. Now that's been sort of, you know, that's done. That's over. So yeah.
Look, we could debate that. I don't think it's like the Bush family. You know, they shouldn't be called. Corruption. And that's where Trump himself has just opened the door to a historic degree. One to which, with these crypto deals in particular, like every once in a while, we check in and it's just shocking. Like in his very first week in office, I remember, you know, they asked him about his net worth and the reporter was like, I believe that you're worth several $1 billion more today. And he's like, oh, really? That's great news. Well, this time he bristled at a new question about it and in fact threatened, because the journalist was Australian, to report that reporter to the Australian government. Let's take a listen.
Heilige Scheiße! Er hat sich Zeit gelassen! Brauchen die Position des feindlichen Fahrzeugs! Getroffen, Granate! Los, weg hier! Du hast noch nicht genug? Jemand will unbedingt tot sein!
Take what you do best and create a website that's worthy of it. With AI, every click is an opportunity to shape your brain, fine-tune your design, generate content in seconds, and showcase what you love so others will love it too. It's your business, your website. You do it yourself on Wix.
A president in office should be engaged in so much business activity.
Well, I'm really not. My kids are running the business. I'm here. You know what the activity, where are you from?
I'm from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Paul Corners program.
Well, the Australians, you're hurting Australia, right? In my opinion, you are hurting Australia very much right now. And they want to get along with me. You know, your leader is coming over to see me very soon. I'm going to tell him about you. You said a very bad
Quiet. And I will be, what did he say? I will be reporting you to the, you are hurting Australia very much right now. I will tell this, I will tell about this to your leader. He goes, excuse me? And he says, be quiet. So that's scary, man. By the way, they don't have free speech, as we all saw during COVID. So good luck.
Yeah, we don't have free speech here, apparently. I'm going to segue into the next segment. But I mean, yeah, he's listen. We don't know that. We don't know the half. I mean, we don't know who's funneling money into the crypto. This is the equivalent of the first administration to the Trump Hotel. Everybody knew if you wanted to get in good with Trump, like if you're the Saudi delegation, you're going to come. You're gonna stay in a big block of rooms. You're going to spend lots of money at the Trump Hotel. Okay, that was terrible. That was brazen corruption on its face as well.
Yes.
That does not hold a candle to what we're talking about here. Billions of dollars. That's what we're talking about here in order to secure your chips or get your goodies, whatever it is. And it's, you know, this one has been revealed, but there is so much more under the surface. You recall, he had that contest of the biggest crypto investors would get to have dinner with him and be able to, you know, bend his ear about whatever it is. And since he has taken such a heavy hand and, you know, is willing to punish you, if you get crosswise with him, he'll let your deals go through. If you, you know, bring your gold bar to proffer to him in the Oval Office and pay the proper homage. You know, I was thinking about, we never, I think, even covered that they had that tech dinner and Zuckerberg was there, and he got asked that question. He got asked this question of like, oh, well, how much are you investing in the U.S.? And he was like, oh, $500 billion or whatever. And then you hear him on a hot mic like, to Trump, oh, I didn't know how much you wanted me to say. Like, they are all just doing whatever they can to kiss the ring of the king and get in good with him. And so in that kind of environment, what, you think these corporate chieftains and foreign heads of state, you think they have any qualms or scruples about just paying off Trump? Of course not. Of course they don't. So it's no wonder that his net worth has skyrocketed primarily because of this crypto coin, which obviously, you know, crypto, in my opinion, is just like a meaningless pyramid scheme. But if you can get people to just pump in money, he's going to make out like a bandit and sell our country down the river for his own wealth and riches.
Yeah, that's it's pretty scary, especially here. And, you know, there's only a few people actually really digging into it, because this New York Times thing took a lot of time. I do want to shout out CoffeeZilla. He does a lot of good job about, like, looking at, there's this more recent case, I don't know if you saw this, where there was a major donation given to Trump, and then somebody hired Pam Bondi's brother as their attorney, and then just got a dismissal, you know, in the case against them.
Yep.
That's apparently how it all works now. It's sickening.
Yeah, and he's suing, the New York Times did this report.
Yesterday.
He's suing the New York Times as well over, you know, separate issues, like, and this will transition to us to our next block here about Jimmy Kimmel ultimately getting canceled.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.
When you've got smoke-free satisfaction, you've got the freedom to do things your way. Get $20 off 5 cans of Zyn when you take the Zyn 10 challenge. Try it for 10 days. Smoke-free. Hands-free. Find your freedom. Claim $20 off your first 5 cans of Zyn when you take the Zyn 10 Challenge. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
Okay, turning now to Epstein, some extraordinary new information being released by the House Oversight Committee. You'll all remember the story about the so-called birth for Jeffrey Epstein.
The quiet streets of Rexburg, Idaho once seemed like the last place where horror could take root. But behind closed doors in the shadows of suburban homes, a story was unfolding. A story so twisted it blurred the line between faith and fanaticism, love and obsession, and life and death. It's a descent into the world of apocalyptic visions, secret pacts, and chilling disappearances. A world where those closest to you could suddenly be branded as something less than human, and where that judgment carried a deadly cost. We're pulling back the veil on the case that shook a community, that gripped a nation, and revealed just how dark belief can become when it turns into something else entirely. Crime, conspiracy, cults, serial killers, and murder, all things that I love to consume, and I know you do too, you sick, twisted, beautiful, intellectually minded. Today we are talking about an absolutely crazy case that I had not heard about, and it didn't happen long ago, but it is highly disturbing. So without further ado, let's unbuckle our seatbelts, go Mach 5 down the highway, slam on the brakes, and bust through the windshield into these doomsday cult murders together. Chad Guy Daybell was born in Provo, Utah, and raised in the nearby city of Springville. He grew up in a Mormon family and served a 2-year mission in New Jersey in his youth. And after high school, he attended Brigham Young University, or BYU, where he studied journalism. And while at BYU, Chad married Tammy Douglas on March 9, 1990. And the couple eventually had 5 children and settled into an ordinary family life. Now, in the early 1990s, Chad worked as a sexton, which is essentially a grave digger for a church, at a cemetery in Springville to help pay for college. And he later said he had 2 near-death experiences as a young man, which profoundly influenced him. And those experiences, according to Chad, heightened his spiritual beliefs and gave him supposed insight into the afterlife. Themes that would feature in his later writings, as we will see. So after graduating with journalism, Chad took a job as a copy editor for a local newspaper in Ogden, Utah. And colleagues from that time recall him as quiet and unremarkable. Because he did not openly discuss any unusual spiritual experiences then, Chad's real ambitions lay in writing. So in 2001, he published his first book, 1 Foot in the Grave, a collection of bizarre stories from his grave digging days. And finding modest success in the niche market of Latter-day Saint, or LDS fiction, Chad and Tammy started a small publishing company called Spring Creek Book Company to self-publish his novels. And he wrote doomsday-themed religious novels, including a series of End of the World, blending LDS scenarios. What is this sounding like? Say it with me. Cult, cult, cult. And by the mid-2010s, Chad had also begun publishing books by other aspiring LDS authors, notably near-death experience accounts. And in 2014, he published author Julie Rowe's visionary experiences, and around that time confided that the events in his own novels were based on visions he claimed to have had. So Chad's growing fixation on end times prophecies coincided with a major life change. And in 2015, claiming he received a personal revelation, he uprooted his entire family from Utah and moved to Salem, Idaho. And Tammy got a job as an assistant librarian there, and they relocated their publishing business as well. And friends would later note that Chad's personality had grown increasingly weird and obsessed with apocalyptic ideas around this time.
I'm Lady London, and this is The Spot.
Walk in a room and ask 10 people who I am, you'll get the same answer. No wavering. Consistency has
Talk to me. Maybe it's time to listen. It's not always time to speak. 'Cause lately it's hard for me. I'm trying not to give up.
Say it with me. Cult, cult, cult. Just screaming. Future cult leader, isn't it? But still, those who knew him say there were few obvious red flags. And former neighbors and friends mostly saw him as a religious but soft-spoken family man and author. And no one could have predicted that within a few years, Chad Daybell would be at the center of a string of suspicious events. June 26, 1973, in Loma Linda, California, formerly known with the last name Cox. And she was also raised in a Mormon family, but her upbringing was unusual because her parents were anti-tax protesters aligned with sovereign citizen ideology, often clashing with the IRS. And as a young woman, Lori was very attractive, outgoing, and for a time worked as a hairstylist. And she also dabbled in the spotlight, because in 2004 she competed in the Mrs. Texas beauty pageant and even appeared on the game show Wheel of Fortune. I used to love that game show. But Lori's personal life was turbulent. She would marry young at 19 to her high school boyfriend in 1992, but that first marriage ended in a divorce. Her second marriage came a few years later in October 1995, when she wed a man named William LaJoya, and they had a son, Colby, born in 1996. So by 1998, that marriage too had failed. Not a great track record. And in 2001, Lori married for a third time to Joseph Anthony Ryan Jr., who became a stepfather to Colby and gave the boy his last name. So Lori and Joseph had a daughter together named Tylee Ryan, born in 2002. And this third marriage was highly bitter for the two of them, and they would divorce in 2005 amid a resentful custody battle during which Lori accused Joseph of abusing Colby and Tylee. And in 2007, Lori's brother Alexander, or Alex Cox, actually attacked Joseph, claiming he had been abusive to Lori and the kids. Now, Alex Cox served 90 days in jail for that assault, and years later, Colby would confirm that he had indeed been molested as a child, though the claim had not been fully proven. And tragically, Joseph died from arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease in 2018. And police briefly re-examined Joseph's 2018 death for foul play, but found nothing suspicious and closed the case. And Lori's fourth marriage would tie her to the Vallow family, as we know her today. And in February 2006, she married Charles Vallow, a businessman from Arizona. And Charles was a devout Catholic who converted to Lori's LDS faith after their wedding. And together they raised Lori's two children, Colby and Tylee. And in 2013, the couple lovingly adopted Charles' grandnephew, Joshua Jackson, or JJ Vallow, who was then a baby. JJ was the biological grandson of Charles' sister, Kay Woodcock, and Kay's husband, Larry. Now, the Woodcocks had cared for JJ as an infant, and the baby was unfortunately born drug exposed due to his biological parents' substance abuse. And this was before the Vallows adopted him, of course. So JJ had special needs and required a constant, loving routine, and he would be later diagnosed with autism. But by all accounts, Charles and Lori provided a very stable home for little JJ, and Lori was a loving mother to both Tylee and JJ in those early years. So the family lived in the suburbs of Phoenix, Arizona, and even spent a few idyllic years in Kauai, Hawaii, running a small business before returning back to Arizona around 2017. But beneath the appearance of normalcy, however, Lori's priorities were shifting dramatically by the late 2010s, and she became increasingly obsessed with doomsday prophecies and extremist religious teachings. And friends and family later noted that Lori's personality started to change, and she began insisting she had a divine purpose and that darkness surrounded those who opposed her. Once the two eventually met, would set Lori on a dark path that few could have imagined. So Lori Vallow first crossed paths with Chad Daybell in October of 2018 at a religious conference in St. George, Utah. And the event was part of a preparedness and prophecy-focused series called Preparing a People, and it attracted LDS church members interested in end times teachings. And Chad was one of the speakers at this conference, presenting his apocalyptic theories and promoting his novels about the end of the world and all of his, afterlife prophecies that he's been having. And Lori would attend with a close friend, Melanie Gibb, and another associate, Zulema Haskins. And Lori at this was a fan of his Doomsday podcast appearances. And when she heard him speak in person, she was immediately drawn in by his charisma and unconventional prophetic claims. And according to later testimony, when Lori and Chad were introduced at the conference, it was as if a spark ignited. A just giant shitstorm of a spark. A spark that would start a damn forest fire. So they would spend the weekend talking intensely about spiritual visions and their belief that they had met before in previous lifetimes. And flattered and intrigued, Lori absorbed Chad's every word. Just gobbled it up. Despite the fact that both of them were married to other people at the time, Lori to Charles Vallow and Chad to Tammy Daybell, they formed an instant secret connection. And it's reported that during their very first conversation, Chad declared Lori was an eternal being of great significance. I've been told my eyes look pretty, but not that. That might get me. Just kidding. No, these people are literally insane. But this kind of flattery and grand destiny just immediately appealed to Lori, who already had a few screws loose, if you know what I mean, and who already begun to view herself as someone with a special role in the end times. So in the weeks and months following that initial meeting, Lori and Chad's relationship escalated quickly and in alarming secrecy. And they began corresponding regularly. So it started as discussions about scripture, and Chad's unusual beliefs soon turned into open affection. And by late 2018, Chad and Lori did their best to see each other despite living in different states and still being married to other people, and Chad being in Idaho and Lori being in Arizona. But Chad would visit Arizona to see Lori under various pretenses, and Lori made trips north to Idaho as well. And it was during this period that Chad, who fancied himself a prophet, claimed he had received revelations about Lori. Very convenient, Chad. And he told her that she was an exalted godlike being appointed to carry out a special mission in the coming apocalypse. And that he, Chad, had been her husband in multiple past lives.
Bursting with bold, fresh flavors. Pair your feast with handcrafted pastas. Step into a lively space. Boils with seafood done right. Crab isn't just adventure starts here.
Man, it goes like so far beyond just convince of yourself to just like come up with this and try to convince somebody else of this, and then you just gotta meet somebody equally as narcissistic as you, and it's probably just not well. But it's bonkers to me anyway. According to Lori's close friend Melanie Gibb, Chad and Lori firmly believed they had been eternally bonded and sealed by God, transcending their current marriages. How convenient for that. I don't think you can put that on divorce papers for a cause, but alright. So their affair intensified as Chad's prophecy grew more fantastical, and convinced Lori that they had a grand destiny together to lead their righteous after society's imminent collapse. And they communicated in code and sometimes used burner phones to hide their frequent contact. And Lori's husband, Charles Vallow, discovered the affair in early 2019 and confronted Lori about it, but she dismissed his concerns. Again, how convenient for her, just being like, nah, it's crazy. That's crazy. I'm just an all-knowing being who's been eternally connected to this random man from Idaho. I don't know. Or Arizona, I don't know. And in fact, Charles grew so alarmed by Lori's radical talk and infidelity that he filed for divorce in February of 2019, actually citing that Lori believed she was a god and threatened to kill him if he stood in the way. I wonder what section you gotta put that under. I'd like to see that paperwork. But Lori managed to delay the divorce by persuading Charles to reconcile shortly after. The damage was done. She was fully emotionally invested in Chad Daybell by then. And as their secret romance grew, Chad bolstered Lori's devotion by weaving an elaborate spiritual narrative around it. He told Lori that she had been a celestial goddess in previous eras and that he had been her divine consort. And at one point, Chad claimed Lori was once married to the ancient biblical figure James the Less, who he also claimed to be in that past life, and that Lori herself had been various historical figures of great spiritual significance, including and not limited to the wife of the angel Moroni, a key figure in LDS scripture. And he also said he was able to see their past lives together and that heavenly beings had brought them for a higher purpose. Just blah, blah, blah. Just so much bullshit. It's just great. It's great that they're living in a little fantasy world, and that would be fine if they weren't evil, which they are. And for Lori, who had long been devout but never particularly famous or powerful, these claims were intoxicating. It's, narcissism. And she embraced the role Chad gave her wholeheartedly. And by mid-2019, Lori and Chad were deeply entangled, emotionally, spiritually, and even conspiratorially, because both still had spouses. And they even discussed that certain people close to them might need to die because evil spirits were inhabiting them and blocking their mission. Evil! And this is basically just a terrifying foreshadowing of what was to come. So in short, what began as an affair rooted in fringe religious obsession quickly evolved into a dangerous pact. Chad and Lori's love story would soon leave a trail of broken lives and deaths in its wake. While researching these very heavy stories and after researching them, I usually need something to ground myself or something to kind of fidget with while I'm doing it, because I have pretty bad anxiety. But something that's really simple and keeps my hands busy while I'm processing everything is actually Fume Zero. Thank you to Fume Zero for sponsoring and supporting this channel. But Fume Zero, for those of you who don't know, is the brand new grab-and-go flavored air device from Fume. And look, I get it. We all need something to help us decompress, because I know I do. And that's why I love what Fume Zero does differently, because it's single-use, preloaded, and ready to go. No charging, no refills, no setup. And at just $24.99, you can get started. But here's the thing, it's zero nicotine, zero vapor, and zero batteries. This is not a vape. I'm very anti-vape. It's flavored air made with natural plant-based cores, and you get 6 flavors and over 10 days of use. And I'm personally partial to crisp mint, but there's peach blush, raspberry, and something for everyone. And the adjustable airflow lets you dial in your ideal draw with a simple twist. And plus, it's fidget-friendly by design, with this smooth triangular shape and subtle click mechanism. And it even has a chewable tip for when you need something to hold onto. It's designed to replace the ritual, giving you that hand-to-mouth satisfaction without the guilt or chemicals. So take zero chances with Fume Zero today. Available for just $24.99 USD. You can head to tryfume.com, that's TRYFUM.com, to start with zero. Because sometimes the best evidence of change is the habit you leave behind. So start with zero and stick with Fume. So Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow didn't form a formal church, if you will, but they crafted a personalized belief system so extreme that it essentially functioned like a cult within their circle. And their doctrine was a distorted offshoot of mainstream LDS or Mormon teachings blended with New Age mysticism and apocalyptic fanaticism. Say it with me. Cult, cult, cult. And central to Chad and Lori's theology was the looming end of the world.
I'm Lady London, and this is The Spark.
what do we know about every single cult we've ever gone over is that there's always an end of the world prophecy, because that's convenient for the narrative, because you got to be afraid of something that's coming, so you got to believe in what these people are saying, otherwise you're gonna die in the doomsday or whatever. It's dominant. It keeps happening. How does this keep happening? There's so many videos about it. Just know if somebody comes at you and they're like, hey, by the way, you gotta believe in me because the aliens are coming back and I'm Jesus 2.0 and this is gonna happen, and you gotta give me $10,000 and leave your whole family. It's a cult. Anyway, Chad often prophesized that the final apocalypse was imminent. And at one point, he pinpointed July 22nd, 2020 as the date the world would end. The significant date every single cult leader does. It's always a date. But he claimed to have special prophetic gifts, including visions of future destruction and the ability to discern people's spiritual identities. And Chad told followers, and Lori fervently believed, that he had lived 31 past lives on various Earth-like planets. And Lori had lived 21 past lives, 5 of those with Chad as her spouse. And this idea of reincarnation, or multiple mortal probations, is far outside Orthodox Mormon doctrine. But Chad insisted it was true and necessary for achieving exaltation, which is external glory. And one of the most disturbing aspects of their belief system was a cosmology of light versus dark spirits. And Chad taught that every person was either inhibited by a light spirit aligned with Jesus Christ, or a dark spirit aligned with Satan. And he even devised a numeric rating system to score an individual's spiritual lightness or darkness on a scale. And with those deeply dark, considered to be under demonic influence. And according to Chad, if someone was taken over by a particularly evil entity, their true spirit was forced out and their body was then inhabited by a demon. So essentially rendering them a zombie in Chad and Lori's terminology. And they taught that these zombies looked like normal people, but were no longer truly alive. And the possessing dark spirit would need to be driven out or destroyed. And frighteningly, Chad and Lori concluded that the only sure way to eradicate a zombie was to kill the host body, thereby releasing the person's original spirit from limbo and killing the evil spirit as well. So this lethal doctrine effectively turns certain people in their lives into targets for elimination under a twisted religious justification. And Chad also claimed to receive continuous revelations through a veil to the spiritual world. And he told followers he could open portals to other realms and communicate with angels and even deceased beings to get instructions. How convenient for Chad. Also, what cult leader's name is Chad? If I ever follow a Chad, hit me over the head, all right? And Lori soon declared she, too, had a direct line to God. And she believed she was a prophesized exalted goddess sent to lead the righteous in the end times. And that as such, she was not subject to earthly consequences. Quote, she couldn't be held responsible for her actions on earth, unquote. One friend reported Lori believed. Isn't that convenient? Wouldn't it be nice to just steal from your local Walmart, get caught and be like, I'm not an earthly being, I'm a goddess from another planet and I've lived 31 lives. None of these rules apply to me. And they're just like, oh, got it. Got it. Enjoy the sunglasses and sweater, that's fine. Who are these people? But they both talked about certain faithful people being translated beings, essentially having transcended to a higher spiritual level that gave them powers like not needing to eat or the ability to teleport at will. Needless to say, these ideas are not taught by any official LDS doctrine. Rather, Chad and Lori just cherry-picked religious concepts and rewrote them to the extreme, as one religious scholar observed. So to outsiders, the Daybell Vallow belief system sounded like wild fiction, like it does to you and I hope. But within their echo chamber, Chad in particular was very persuasive, like we see with a lot of cults. But when you're in that, when you're like feeling as low, you have like nothing to your name, you're not close with family, you don't have anyone, and somebody's just lifting you up saying you're like like an extraterrestrial goddess being, you're gonna be like, oh my god, really? I don't know, I'm saying like crazy and insane and all that kind of stuff, and it is, but I also have extreme sympathy for people that don't harm people. I don't have any sympathy for Lori and Chad, by the way. I think they're evil pieces of shit, but...
Sorry to hit you out of the blue, brother. I got no one else to call.
You know, I digress. But anyway, Chad, he was persuasive. He spoke with